This week, we are talking about May 15th through the 21st. The new moon in Taurus, the sun in Gemini, Mars in Leo, and Jupiter in Taurus. Me and Scott are discussing the new format for our visuals that we're really excited to share with you before we dive into some questions. Some major planetary movements occur this week with Mars transiting into Leo, Jupiter transiting into Taurus, and the new moon in Taurus, concluding with the sun in Gemini. Self-worth, values, and sensuality are all themes, so establish what you love in the material world. Find your fun through creativity and following your heart. Embrace with your curious nature and connect with your community to share your joy with those around you. Stay tuned. Oh, and you wanted
And
to
one
announce
more
something?
announcement. Just wanted to say, if anyone hasn't listened to my episode with Ryan Marshall, Rhea Sun Astrology, we got into the entire month of May. So it's a very interesting podcast. The link is in the show notes. So I encourage you to listen to that as well if you want to get in deep to the entire month. Stay tuned.
The weekly transit.
Astrology is a language that communicates how the planets and stars influence life on Earth. I'm Scott Tajarian. I'm an interpreter of this language. Join me and my co-host Ingrid Iverson, who helps bring an even more practical look at this astral language. The weekly transit is here to bring clarity to the chaos, so you can ride the planetary waves instead of the planets riding you.
The weekly transit.
Well, Scott, we have had quite a day already. Hour number 4, I believe we're on.
Yeah, let's see. We started it. Yeah, so yeah, we took like an hour break. So,
Yeah.
but this is our fourth hour. So
Yeah, so if anyone watches the podcast, we have it on YouTube and Spotify. And a little clips are going to be appearing on Instagram now. We're trying to do the whole social media thing. But we have a new format. I think it's also going to be in the newsletter. So if you just see any of our visuals, we've been updating the graphics, working on a new template for making it easier to read. So we've just been doing design work together the whole afternoon, which is kind of
yes,
unexpected. We had this new thing we keep saying it's okay, just one more week and we'll have a little meet about the changes, but it was just easier to sit together and work it out,
yeah,
which it was amazing. I think we got so much accomplished, but it
we
was
did.
like it was so intense.
Yeah, tell me, what were you experiencing?
Oh no, just the back and forth of getting each little nuance and learning a new every time there's like a new upgrade to our stuff, it's just a lot of energy to create a new format and get it right. It's like once we get the hang of it, then it's you don't there's no it's just autopilot. But the
Yeah,
initial moving of everything from one template to another and the back and forth between I feel like I know all the signs and symbols, but now that I'm working on helping Scott here with the chart and the placement of the chart, I'm actually learning more. Just, I didn't like, usually I look at the signs and symbols and I see, you know, moon in Aquarius connecting, whether that's a trine or a square or whatever, with another planet and another sign. That's the only thing I look at. The rest of the chart kind of disappears to me. So I'm able to analyze it, but there's actually more information in there. So just sitting with you and the back and forth was interesting. But like anytime there's like a learning curve, I'm just like, oh my gosh, my brain feels like, and then Scott's also like, he uses Illustrator, but I've been designing longer and I'm not a teacher. And Scott's communicating to me in the language of astrology, and I'm trying to communicate to him in the language of Illustrator and design work. So there's like a little bit of a language barrier, but I think we work really well together. Like patience, laughter, the ridiculousness of trying to like communicate over a Zoom thing without knowing the names for each of the pieces. Like I use these tools all the time, and I feel like Scott's always like, "No, there's a better way." I'm like, I don't even know how to tell you how it's better because I don't even have the words. So like even explaining how I'm trying to like upgrade him is is complicated. But I think we're going through an upgrade period. It's coming to the end of the retrograde, and we're like, this has been on the plate for a while, so we're like, oopsie, clearing some stuff that's been lingering, and that feels exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I thought I was going to fall asleep after that session, but
It was
we both took,
intense.
well, you took Maggie on a walk and I took myself on a walk. So now I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
I was like all put together this morning. I like got ready. I put a little makeup on. I like brushed my, like did my hair.
Mm.
And I'm like a couple hours in, like a bit frazzled, but I'm excited
Mm-hmm.
to show everyone the new format. And
Yeah.
yes, there's still some more upgrades going to happen, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
excited.
Cool. Well, thank you for all of your work and your expertise, Ingrid, and your patience with me and my meticulousness and everything. And I get really. It's hard for me not to get
Annoying.
agitated. Yeah. Or annoyed and annoying. Yeah, I become annoying when I'm annoyed. That's sort
Yeah.
of what I do. So, yeah.
I feel like there's like moments where it's like I start getting frustrated because I'm getting impatient, and then I realize you're getting frustrated because you're impatient, and then I'm like, oh, okay, this is a lot for Scott to learn, even though I'm also learning. So I'm just like back and forth between,
Hmm.
trying to be patient with myself, and then also being like accommodating and patient of you for you learning a
Hmm.
new thing, and it's like,
You're so great. You were so patient
oh,
with me. Yes.
thank you.
Yes. I mean, I feel like I hate to be a dick, but like just move this like one little centimeter this way. It's like I'm just so like I want everything to be just so. And so yeah,
And I
I
like I
didn't want
want it to be that way for you also, but then I'm like, I don't know what you're like I'm not seeing, how to replicate it. So it was just like after we got like the halfway point, I was like, oh, I can kind of,
you started to figure it out.
yeah. Then I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
kind of learning what he likes, so now I don't have to ask each little tiny fucking thing. I was just like, I'm
Yeah.
going insane every time I
Yeah.
click something. It's the wrong thing, and I'm like, okay, we're in a rhythm. We're kind of learning it, and yeah, that was a big. Uh, I don't know. Just I feel like that was like an expansion of our like patience and creativity together. So
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I feel like we're much more patient with each other through that experience than we were with like the book.
oh my god, a
That
million
was
percent.
very
We learned.
frustrating.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. I honestly, when we finished that book, I was like, I don't know if I can ever like work on this level of creating something that's like
Hmm.
art together, because it just felt like maddening to try to learn. I mean, like I said, the same thing at the beginning. Like I'm trying to communicate in the language of design, which I'm not articulate in communicating. I'm just doing it myself, so I don't know how to
Hmm.
tell him, and he doesn't even know
Hmm.
what I'm saying when I do use words. And then you're trying to teach
Yeah.
me the language of astrology, and it was just like now the astrology part, I'm like, it's much easier if I didn't know the signs and symbols and we were trying to communicate about this design work right now. It would have been we would have had to just immediately go to sleep. Like, just there's no way we could have recovered. So I'm like, okay, and now you've been using Illustrator and you can kind of communicate, like even just seeing the way you want things and kind of knowing how you like it. It's like, okay, we're to a point where we can, yeah, actually communicate because we have
Yeah.
some experience together in it.
Yeah. I think the big thing for you was like realizing that I'm not trying to fuck with you. You know, I'm not trying to make it more difficult for you. I yeah, I'm
I guess also I've worked with Chris for so many years. I know exactly how he likes things and kind of vice versa.
mhm,
So there's not like the language barrier like there
mhm,
is with us. And I like, I don't like, I want to learn something new, but then also anytime I do something, I want it to be perfect. So then it's like, okay, now I'm getting frustrated with myself and also kind of with you because I'm like, it's not coming out the way he wants it. I want to be able to just do it right the first time without needing 20 adjustments because that's annoying
mhm.
for us both. So that once, we got over that little learning curve, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get less frustrated because I know what to do without having to like, yeah, to the just the learning curve sometimes, even in just in all things. I'm like, oh, I want to be better at dance, and then I'm like, fuck, this is so hard. Everything looks like shit, and it's
Mhm.
like, it's just agitating and like that uncomfy like ickiness when things are not instantly the way I want them to be.
Yeah, totally, totally, absolutely. I feel the same way, and that's part of the challenge. Is like we
Both
both
of us at
wanted
the
to,
same time.
we both wanted to be perfect, but your
Hmm.
version of perfect is sometimes different than my version of perfect.
Yeah.
And that's where, the conflict ensues.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're getting really good at compromise and also just learning each other. And even after all this time, there's still like more to learn. Every time there's a
Mm-hmm.
new project, there is like a new learning curve.
Yeah, totally. So thank you for
Well,
being on this learning curve journey
yeah,
with
thank
me.
you, Scott. I think we did
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
everyone, let us know what you think of all the new stuff.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Uh, do I want to ask, should we start with some questions?
Sure.
And then I guess before we get started, if anyone doesn't want to listen to the questions or they want to get right into the week, usually we start the week with questions. I share a little bit about whatever's happening in my week. Scott gives me some feedback about what that means astrologically, a little catch up time. Then we move into each day of the week, kind of like a weather report for what's happening in the planets and stars
Mm-hmm.
and how to work with the energy. So if you want to skip ahead to each day of the week, or for me, if I'm having a really good day or a really bad day, I like to just go on that day and re-listen to it because I forget what's happening all the time. So there's little time markers in the show notes. And you can click on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it goes right to that moment in time. And yes, I guess I'll just go into the questions now.
Okay, cool. Ask
We
away.
have we have 3 questions. I'm going to start with Volunteer Tomato.
Oh, wow.
Volunteer Tomato would like to know, what astrology placements would you relate to the song "I'm Not in Love" by 10cc? Do you even know what? I don't even know what that is. 10cc? Okay, wait. Scott,
I love that you don't know what that is, Ingrid. It's a
never
song
heard
that
of it.
came out before you were born. It's a song that when I hear it, it takes me back to the 70s, to me being a child,
Oh,
because it was such a huge song at the time. Yeah, it was like one of the big songs of the 70s.
I'll have to
Maybe
take
if
a
you,
listen.
yeah, it's how does it go? It's like
I'll play a little clip. Maybe I can play
well,
a little clip in the when I edit it together.
yeah, well, we'll put the song in the, like, a link to the song in the show notes.
Okay.
But it's that song goes, I'm not in love, so don't forget it. It's just a silly phase I'm going through. Does that make sense? Does that dun,
It's not.
dun, 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 dun. And just because I call you up, don't get me wrong, don't think you've got it made.
Oh, it's really
Dun,
sweet. I don't
dun,
know.
dun.
It's not
Yeah,
ringing a bell.
it's like it's really kind of a timeless song, because like you listen to it and you're like, this could be a song from today. Like the way that they recorded this song is so innovative for the time that it was recorded. I mean, the song came out in 1975, in May of 1975. And I mean, I don't even know, maybe like if you YouTube like the making of the song,
Hmm.
there's different documentaries on it, because they recorded, like, I don't know, like hundreds of vocal tracks just layered over each other, in different like harmonic tones, that it's so rich, and like the synthesizers and everything. It's really kind of a timeless song, and it was way ahead of its time. In the 1970s, it was very, very innovative. And the 4 guys in the band, 10cc, were all like super, like they were big session musicians, and really big songwriters too. Like, one of the writers of the song, Graham Goldman. I'm not going to go through all the different songs. Like, you can look on Wikipedia and,
He
and
sounds
all that.
familiar.
But he wrote some big hits in the 1960s, that he didn't sing, but bands like the Yardbirds or the Hollies, Herman's Hermits, they sang his songs. So very accomplished songwriter. So, to answer the
Wait,
question,
before
yeah,
you answer, can I give
yeah,
a guess based on the
okay,
song title?
yeah, tell
Um,
me. Yeah, 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 good, good.
Venus,
Yeah.
Venus and or Pluto and Venus, are those in there?
Well, but
or
what is the
Uranus and
question?
Venus. Oh,
Is the question is
I don't
like
even remember. What
what
astrology place
astrological placements? What astrology placements? So to me, they're asking like,
an alignment?
well, I think they're asking like the way that I take the question
Mhm.
is, like what signs, what are the vibes of the different signs or whatever from the astro. I mean, I can tell you where the planets were in May of 1975 if that's the
No,
question.
no, that's not the question. The question is like
The
the
vibe,
feeling.
right?
Yeah, I
The
think.
feeling
I
of
think
the song.
I would guess. Well, you know the song, but I would just guess Pluto or Uranus and
But where are these?
Venus.
I think, but it's like,
Venus.
where are these planets though? You know, like,
See, I can't
what?
do that part. That's your.
Yeah.
That's on you.
Well, I mean, but no, but think about it this way, Ingrid. Like, what sign is the vibe?
Venus. Well,
No,
I would say
that's Venus is a
Venus.
planet.
Oh,
What
well, I said.
sign? What sign does Venus rule? So you're saying like Libra or Taurus?
Oh my God, I am brain dead. I would say. Yeah, I guess either one of those would make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Libra is the sign of relationships, and then Taurus. You said Taurus?
yeah. Taurus is also ruled by Venus.
Really? Well, I guess I wouldn't really relate Taurus in my mind. Hold on, my phone went off. Um, I would lean more towards Libra than Taurus, but that's just me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, there's definitely that, the harmony. When you listen to the song, the harmony is very Libra. But there is like this richness of Taurus where just like the lush sound, it's like a lush, a rich sound to the song. It's very rich. And one of the songwriters, Graham Gouldman, he is a Taurus sun. The other songwriter, Eric Stewart, who another very accomplished songwriter and session musician, he is an Aquarius sun, which I find that very interesting because the the sort of the idea for the song came from him, and it came from this idea for the song after his wife, who he'd been married to for 8 years at that point, had asked him why he did not say I love you more often to her. And he said that I had this crazy idea in my mind that repeating those words would somehow degrade the meaning. So I told her, well, if I say every day I love you, darling, I love you, blah blah blah, it's not going to mean anything eventually. So that's where, I'm not in love, I guess, comes from. But it's just so interesting because when I think of Aquarius, I think of, it's that detached.
Mm,
It's not a lovey-dovey
yeah.
sign. And
Yeah, you can
so,
have the emotions without being like in them. You're
yes.
a little more like factual
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with the information.
Yeah.
I mean, I also
So,
feel that. Like I do say it often. I will say it to my friends, but also I can see I can see someone's perspective of just being like, well, I don't why do I need to say it all the time? Like it takes the
mm-hmm.
magic out of that
Mm.
expression when it's just overused. Well, now I feel like especially now thinking about this song, it's like everyone's like love you. They just met you that day and they'll say
Yeah.
love you. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I literally don't even know you, and if something happened to you, I would not even like that would suck, but like also I'm not emotionally attached to this person where your heart is broken if something bad happened to them. It's like it's not affecting you emotionally, but we're using the word like words I love you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's a good thing or a bad thing, really. It's just like kind of the culture these days. We've like adopted these little like phrases and
And it maybe kind of cheapens the meaning to
well,
some
then it's, I
degree.
mean, then it can also be confusing because maybe you're dating someone new and you're like, oh, love you, bye. And it's like, well, is that love you, bye? Like, I just met you, haha. Like, you're so
Yeah.
cool and we connect. Or it's like, oh, like I'm in love with you. Like, there's a deep, deep, heartfelt connection that, like, of magical, like, unexplained, like, richness of feeling. Those are two different things, but it's the same exact phrase.
Yes. Well, I feel like there's a difference between saying I love you and saying I'm in love with you.
Hmm.
Like if you're saying I'm in love with you, there's like a deeper meaning. It's like a deeper
But
romantic sort
yeah,
of.
but in that relationship, you're not going to always be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in love with you." Like once you're like connected, you're just going to say, "I love you." Like I love you so much. That's that in love part I think would be kind of, I don't
You don't
know.
say
I feel
that?
like even in, well, no, no, I mean I have said that, but
Yeah.
even in a relationship those are two different things. When you say, "Oh, I'm in love with you and I love you," even those two are a bit different when you're expressing those feelings. Oh, also,
Yeah.
well,
Go.
what about any like Leo energy of like the courage of expression?
Maybe it doesn't really
No?
feel Leo to me. Like if you
Okay.
listen to the song, like
Okay.
I feel like Pisces, it's dreamy. I feel Taurus, it's lush and rich. And I feel Aquarius because it's an innovative song, but it's also detached.
Hmm.
It's saying I'm not in love, but at the same time, there's a deep meaning in the lyrics. It's like he's saying he's not in love, but at the same time, it's like such a deep love song. And then there's also like this interlude in the song, which apparently one of she was like the receptionist at the studio where they were recording it. They had her come in to say this one part that is like it's just like this iconic part of the song where it's like this interlude where this female voice comes on and says, "Be quiet. Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry." And it's like there's something about that where it's like, yeah, so we're not supposed to get emotional. We've got to,
Mm-hmm.
that's that Aquarius energy. We're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to get emotional. We're just supposed to be logical about the feeling and not get into the feeling. So
I
like
think
one of the verses is I keep your picture on the wall. It hides a nasty stain that's lying there. So don't ask me to give it back. I know it doesn't mean that much to me. So on one hand,
oh fuck.
he's saying that the picture doesn't mean that much, but he's not going to give it back because it's covering a stain on the
It's
wall.
like I need it. I need it
Exactly.
for practical
Yeah,
purposes.
totally. And maybe that's
Interesting.
some Virgo energy right there too, because so yeah, Graham Goldman, he is a Virgo moon. So yeah, yeah,
Well, I mean, I kind of think we answered most of this question in a
yeah.
little more detail than I anticipated, but this is kind of a fun way to learn astrology is just kind of intuitively choosing the signs and hearing, you know, even for myself, even if I'm wrong, just kind of guessing what would resonate with that and then hearing your feedback. I think this is a cool way to just get a little deeper into the signs and kind of like use our intuition because there's no right or wrong. Obviously, it's a song. It's not, we could have a birth time for the song, but it's just, yeah, it just feels more like this is kind of
I
like
looked
fun
for the
pop
birth time of the
culture.
song.
I knew you would. I knew
I
you would.
couldn't find a birth time. It said like it was recorded during these
Mhm.
like sort of months or whatever, but there was no like specific. It was recorded on this day at this time or place. But I really appreciate the question, volunteer tomato, because it sent me on a rabbit hole, just like digging into this song and the history of it and the meaning behind it. It's very interesting, and it took me back to my childhood.
We're going to move on to Wes Meeker. He says, I've noticed that my moon is in the same sign as my parents' sun signs. They're both
Hmm.
Pisces sun signs, and I'm a Pisces moon. Likewise, my wife's moon sign, Cancer moon, is the same as her dad's sun sign, Cancer sun. And our son
Hmm.
shares the same sign in his moon, Aquarius, as his mother's sun sign, Aquarius. Is this
Wow.
just a coincidence? In my home, is this a thing that moon signs mirror a parent sun sign, or is this just a coincidence in my home? Either way, what is your relationship between the moon sign and your parents' astrological sun signs? I have heard in childhood it may exhibit more of your moon signs than your sun signs as you're still developing your personality. I love this question, and I feel like we've kind of talked about this before, just
Yeah.
in you telling me on my personal stuff about myself and my parents and family dynamics. So I think this is a great question. Thank you, Wes.
Yes. Thank you, Wes. I, I said this many times and I'll continue to say it over and again because it's so fascinating to me. I love seeing the reflections between parents and children, siblings. It's fascinating, in family. There's like family traits, family astrological traits. And so I would say that it's very unique, but it's also not uncommon, because I more often than not necessarily seen. I think it's very like fascinating that Wes is his his moon sign is reflecting his parents' sun sign, and his wife's moon sign is reflecting her dad's sun sign, and their child's moon sign is reflecting the mother's sun sign. So that's fascinating. But I often see, more often than not, that people share reflections in the primal triad with their parents and siblings. It's more peculiar to me when I see parents and children that don't have any reflections with each other.
Oh, so
So
that means it would be kind of common to be seeing
just
these
just from
placements.
my experience,
Okay.
I mean, not necessarily in the exact way that Wes describes
Mm-hmm.
with his family. Maybe it's somebody's, the father's sun sign is the child's rising sign, or the
Mm-hmm.
child's sun sign is the father's moon sign, or the mother's moon sign, or but there's usually, I more often than not see parents signs reflected, their primal triad reflected in their children. Like in my
So,
family, in particular, I'm a Scorpio sun, my mom's a Scorpio moon, my sister's a Scorpio rising, my dad is a Taurus sun, Taurus moon, I'm a Taurus rising. My mom is an Aquarius sun, and my sister is an Aquarius moon. So that is one instant, like Wes, where Wes was talking about the parent's sun sign reflected in the child's moon sign. That's the same. What his son shares with his mom is the same with what my sister shares with our mom.
can we use one of the examples of those connections, the sun versus the moon reflecting in each other, how that would affect their relationship or like their personalities in some way, like reflecting each other?
Yeah, it is like, so, if somebody's moon is reflecting their parent's sun, there is there's an understanding between the two. There's some sort of emotional compatibility going on there because the child's emotions are reflecting the parent's identity. So,
Yes.
yeah. And it's one of those funny things where people will say, "Oh my god, you look so much like your dad," or "You look so much like your mom." And like I had this funny conversation with uh a woman that I grew up with from the time we were like 4 years old. And this was the last time I was up visiting back home, and we went out to dinner, and I was just like vomiting astrology all over her. And she was
No, not you, Scott.
and she was like, "Well, then you and your dad must have something in common astrologically because you look so much like your dad." And I'm like, "Well, my dad is a Taurus sun and a Taurus moon, and I'm a Taurus rising. So there you have. There's the reflection." So,
You're like, I proved it.
yeah, exactly.
Scott's got an answer for
So,
everything over here.
so it's fun to see how they reflect in the personality, but also in the physicality as well.
Well, let's see. Thank you, Wes. I think that, yeah, this is really interesting. I feel like almost every time I bring up, even like obviously in family dynamics, but even in like relationships and, these even if it's not in the primal triad, like Scott notices mostly,
Mhm.
it's like astrology is such a great tool for reflecting each other in relationships and, just digging a little deeper into like compatibility charts
Mhm.
is super cool because we learn more about each other, more of what we're in common, what we have in common, or what we do not have in common, so we can understand someone better who's not like us.
Yes.
Um, but if anyone doesn't know, Scott also does compatibility charts. You can do it for a romantic partnership. You could do it for your siblings, for your parents, for your kid, for coworkers. And those are some
Yes.
of my favorite things. Like I already kind of know what's going on with myself, but I learned so much about myself through relationship and how to be more understanding and compassionate and a better communicator through, like, I always call Scott for when I'm having some sort of issue
Mm.
with somebody, and there's always some sort of insight that happens by looking at our charts and how
Mhm.
we connect, how we can connect better, what is irritating about that person, or how we can be more on the same page, what that person needs, what I need, to feel heard and seen. So I always just think that's really interesting, and I think this question kind of makes me think about just our compatibility with each other and how we can
Yes.
learn.
I just want to also say one other thing, Ingrid, like just
Yeah.
thinking of your family,
Hmm.
you're a Gemini rising. Angela, your sister's a Gemini moon.
Of course she is.
She's Angela's a Sagittarius sun and an Aquarius rising. Your dad is an Aquarius moon and a Sagittarius rising.
Oh,
Your
really?
mom is a Sagittarius moon and an Aquarius rising.
Wow, dude.
So you see
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
everybody is tying into somebody
Hmm.
in some way. So yeah, it's fascinating.
All right. I want to move on to our last question.
Okay.
Kendra Charles. She said her North Node is in Aries, like Ingrid. Yay. And what does the Jupiter Kazemi? Kazemi?
Kazemi.
I've
Yeah,
never heard of this.
Kazemi.
What
Yeah.
does the Jupiter Kazemi on our natal North Node mean? I have not even a clue because I've never even heard this word. So I guess first, what is Kazemi? Or what?
Kazemi is Kazemi is like the word for a conjunction. It's like another phrase for a conjunction. It's when two planets join at the same sign. So
So I
so
have that
what
too?
no, what she's talking about, and this is already passed for you. I don't know if it's passed for her, but when Jupiter crossed over your North Node.
Uh huh.
So I'm not sure what degree the North Node is for Kendra,
Hmm.
but when Jupiter crosses over the North Node, when it's conjunct with the North Node,
Yeah.
Jupiter, the planet of expansion.
It feels like an
So
exciting time for, yeah, fulfilling your life's purpose in some way. It's an opportunity.
totally, or even recognizing what it is, seeing
Right.
what it is, or having opportunities to like you said, like lean into your soul's purpose.
Mm,
So if Jupiter, if you're born with, well, actually, this week we're going to be talking about Jupiter moving into Taurus.
okay.
So really it's for the people that have the North Node in Taurus that are going to be affected by this moving forward over the next year. Is Jupiter is going to cross over that point where your
But
North Node is, and you're going to get
okay.
that expanded awareness of
Cool.
what your soul's purpose is and
Okay.
being given an opportunity to follow that purpose.
And Kazemi, is that specific to the North Node in Jupiter, or is that when it is? What is that
Any,
specific?
it's just another word for conjunction.
Oh, okay, okay,
So,
cool. I love
yeah.
that
So,
word.
yeah, Kazemi. Yeah, the medieval astrological term that is used to refer to planets that are so close to a conjunction. Yeah, so I think it's actually meant for the sun. Is when it's typically referred as when the sun, because it's like there's I have to look up the word. It's a Latin translation of the Arabic term kasmimi, which means as if in the heart. So
Mm,
when you think of the sun is
like
the heart of the solar system, the sun rules the heart. So it's really about the sun. So I don't know if it's like technically you would say that Jupiter is Kazemi with the North Node.
mhm.
I think it might be more in reference to just the sun. So, but I don't know. You can Google that and look it up and see for yourself. So, but yeah, in the heart. So it's like burning it up and giving it a rebirth through the fire energy of the sun.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Kendra. And then before we get into the week, would you like to thank our sponsors, Scott?
Yes, of course. I want to thank Jessica, Kendra, Larry, Jasmine, Brenna, Barbara, Janelle, Vincent and Michelle, Clarissa, Nicole, Aline, Cassie, Merdinas, Brooke, Ricky, Amaranth, Annie, Amber, Deborah, Haley, Janine, Carrie, and Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for supporting the podcast. It allows us to do more time. It allows us to spend more time doing what we love, sharing the planets and stars with you. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to the show notes, go to the support link, and you can donate $1, $5, or $10 a month. You can also buy the book, The Basics of Astrology. You can book a reading with Scott. You can share the podcast with your friends or on your social media. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or our Instagram or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And
yeah, subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube.
Yeah, we're trying to get monetized on YouTube, so we need to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I think we're at like around 700.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even if you don't watch us normally, just go subscribe there because it does help us anyways, just because we want to get to that certain number.
Yes.
And
thank you.
If you are new to the podcast and you want to dive deeper into astrology, the way the podcast works is you're supposed to listen to the podcast and then look at the signs and symbols, which Scott draws out. They go in the newsletter every week. They live on the website. So if you go to theweeklytransit.com, you go to the forecast. It's a little overview of what we talk about each day of the week, along with a photo of the alignments and all of the prompts, like the journal questions that Scott asks me on here. And then you grab the basics of astrology. It's a glossary of all the terms and symbols, little like short, quick, like astrology for dummies, like easy to absorb. If you wanted to read a chart yourself, you really could translate it. And it's also a nice way to support the podcast. So listen to us, go look at the symbols, go get the book. And are you ready to dive into the week?
Let's dive into it, Ingrid. Here we are, Ingrid, on Monday, May 15th. We're looking at Mars, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict in the cardinal water sign, symbolized by the crab, Cancer, forming a positive trine with Neptune, the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, and intuition in the mutable water sign, symbolized by the fish, Pisces. Neptune is also the planetary ruler of Pisces. So the planet of action in Cancer, the sign that represents the past. So this week, the Mars moves into Leo this week. And this is the last major aspect that Mars makes. And this is an opportunity for you to delve into your past, your roots, your upbringing, your childhood, the ones who raised and nurtured you, your ancestors, and really take a courageous look at how they affected your unconscious, the sort of, what is the unconscious? It's like it's like when you're running on autopilot, just your sort of ideas of things that you don't even realize you have an idea of something until somebody tells you, well, why do you think that way? And it's like, oh, I guess because I've always thought this way because my mom, my dad, my cousin, my brother, my sister, all these different things. So what is going on beneath the surface? This is giving you an opportunity to take a courageous look at what is going on beneath the surface of your mind. Any guilt, shame, regret, or blame you may be feeling, and nurturing your younger self for the experiences that you had as a child that created this thought pattern that has carried you into your adulthood, because you created this thought pattern because you needed to in order to feel safe. And now it's actually keeping you maybe from what it is you want. You're living in too much fear, perhaps.
I mean,
And so, yes.
I don't know if on this day is when you would recognize that these patterns are so deeply ingrained in you and they are unconscious. It's like we can't always look forward in the future and correct things. It's like something has to arise where we actually see these things manifest in our life, where we're like, oh fuck, I'm doing this because of my childhood.
Mm.
And it really is affecting me now. I mean, I feel like, especially in particular, my romantic relationships, I have these moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is because of my parents' relationship that I saw growing up or how I was treated as a child. And it's manifesting in choosing the wrong partner.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's uncomfortable, picking someone who's not really compatible with me, and it being a mirror image of what I saw growing up. And then my sister shares her relationship issues. And I'm like, dude, that's her fucking dad. This is our dad, and you are mom right now. And I'm just like, holy, like,
Wow.
my cousin came to visit, and she just shared about more of our family dynamics and our aunts and uncles and our grandparents and all of the kids, all of the siblings. And I'm just like, dude, this is crazy. Like, we're now able to, in this moment, see why our parents are the way they are. We've kind of been doing, I mean, she has gotten readings from you, and she's
Mm-hmm.
very into astrology and using it as a tool for her personal growth. And she's totally tapping into this in trying to see why our family is the way that it is. Why did we end up this way? Why are the siblings this way to each other and to their kids? And how can we heal and move forward? Because unless we look at the pattern and recognize it, and even then, once you recognize it, it doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just fix it with like
Mm-hmm.
you just can't just put a band-aid on it and it's fixed. It's like you can put that band-aid on it now where you're like, okay, I want to heal this. But it takes time to actually heal. Even when I think I consciously make a different choice, a year, 2 years later into a this guy that I've been seeing, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? This is on
Yeah.
me. This is all my psychological baggage that's now surfacing, where I thought I was choosing all of this different stuff through my childhood. And I'm like, oh shit, there is so much more in those dark corners that need to be fucking cleaned out, swept out. Like, those corners need to be cleaned all the time. And there's not always the opportunity to always have the light shining in the corner for you to be able to see it.
And
And
this
it,
is now. This is that light with
okay,
Mars there, right?
now
And
we can do something
Mars,
about it.
yes, yes, is
Okay.
bringing in awareness there. It's directing your attention. Like you may be during this Mars in Cancer energy, maybe you've been going through conflicts in your home life, in your family life. It's meant to be churning up these patterns and habits and traits that you've picked up from your family in order to cleanse them out if they're not serving you. Like going back to that question that Wes brought up about the commonalities between parents and children with the primal triad, and you talking about Jennifer and her talking about your cousins and aunts and uncles and that sort of thing. I've gone through my entire family, everyone that I could get the birth information from, and you can literally see like certain branches in the family tree that have certain astrological traits that
Mhm.
maybe another branch doesn't have. And it makes
Yeah.
sense why this branch is that way and that branch is this way.
Mhm.
Or, what ties the two branches together.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to uncover when you're looking at the astrology of your family and you start to recognize, oh, this is why we are the way that we are. How
Amazing.
do we?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a really, I'm already feeling this kind of energy. So this is like a special day for me to personally note that, this is something I've been really working on to begin with. So to take time out of my day to really sit with this and see how I can take the action to like clear this shit out. Because I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it
Yeah.
anymore.
Exactly. So, but be compassionate to yourself during the process and empathetic to the others who are involved. Now, moving on to Tuesday, May 16th, we've got a couple transits that we're going to be talking about a lot this week.
I do want to say that it's nice when you zoom in, even if it's not perfect, even if it's like 50%, it's nice.
I can zoom in now. For some
Oh,
reason I couldn't before, and now I can. So I don't
see?
fucking understand how this works. Sometimes it lets me zoom in, sometimes it doesn't. So okay, so let's go around the horn here. What are we looking at? We're looking at Pluto, the god of death, lord of the underworld, the planet of transformation, in the fixed air sign symbolized by the water bearer, Aquarius, forming a stressful square with Jupiter, the planet of luck and expansion, and it's just transited in to the fixed earth sign symbolized by the bull, Taurus. So Jupiter moves into Taurus today. We're going to talk about that. As it does, it squares off with Pluto. We're going to be talking about this alignment all week. Then there is Mercury, the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld, the planet of consciousness, communication, and coordination. Also in Taurus, just completed its retrograde, which ended at 5 degrees. Now it's here at 6 degrees. It's making a long-term alignment here with Saturn, the god of wealth and time, the planet of restriction, responsibility, hard work, achievement, and authority in Pisces. So what does this all mean? These alignments are lingering all week. They're lingering all week. So let's begin with Jupiter. Jupiter is moving into Taurus. The last time Jupiter was in Taurus was June 5th, 2011 to June 11th, 2012. Jupiter will be transiting through Taurus from today, May 16th, until May 25th of 2024. So just over a year. The planet of luck and expansion in Taurus, the sign that represents money, the material. So on one way to look at this is like, oh, this is great. You know, like the planet of luck in the sign that represents money. So we're all going to be more abundant when it comes to money and wealth and the material. At the same time, the other side of the coin.
It sounded like you were about to say, but I'm scared.
Well, there's two sides to every coin.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe on the other side of the coin, it's Jupiter is giving us an expanded look at our finances. And you're looking at your finances and you're like, oh my God, I've got to get this in order. I've got to start organizing my money, really being clear about where I'm spending it, how I'm making it. Is it in alignment with my values and my self-worth? There is the danger of being overly extravagant or excessive when Jupiter is in Taurus. So it's important to use this energy to tap into your abundance, but don't overuse it to the point where you're going to have to end up owing money later on or sometime during this transit.
Well, so I'm thinking the alignment of Jupiter and Taurus and Jupiter and Taurus connecting with Pluto in Aquarius might be it's a square, so you're taking the expanded look at your finances and then you're looking at the community and it's everything's shifting in the community. So maybe you're seeing things in the community that you want and you can't have and you want to show up different, and it's like, well, if you want to show up different, you're going to have to make a change to, like, you're going to have to really take a look at your finances if you want to end up where you want to be, which means, you know, planning for your future and maybe being more conservative or being more reflective and actually looking at your finances. Because sometimes people just want to be showy. It's like the material, the negative side of being materialistic. It's like we want to have all these things that give us our creature comforts, and it can be emotionally fulfilling to have wealth. But also, if you're spending too much to get what you want and it's something you actually don't have to spend, you're going to fuck yourself. And it's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
Even though it looks good momentarily to the community, you're like, oh, look at this shiny new car. Okay, well, now you have a $700 a month payment and you're fucking pissed. And you're like, damn it, if I didn't have this expensive ass car, I'm literally talking to myself. Like, in the moment, I was like, oh, I have all this money. I needed a new car, but I should have probably saved beforehand. I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can do, because now I'm looking back, I'm like, well, what could I have done in that moment? At the time, I had a partner that I shared finances with. It felt like it made more sense at the time. And now looking back, I'm like, fuck, I cannot wait to pay off this car, because between the car and the insurance, it's just ridiculous. And it's a burden on my life that I really don't want to have. And it bums me out because if I had that much
Mm,
extra money every month, I would be so much more at ease. I'm like, I don't
mm-hmm,
really go out to eat. Like, I love eating out, but like, I feel like I'm very conservative with my money. I don't do extravagant things. I don't have expensive clothes. And I work so hard. I'm like, I wish, you know, when I was younger, my finances or my expenses were so much less. And
mm-hmm,
I'd like to have a little more discretionary funds. And now
mm-hmm,
I'm like, oh, the more you make, the more you spend. And now all of this is built up. And it's like, okay, now I am seeing that in myself. And I'm like, I want to be more conservative because I don't want to have any debt at all. Like, that's not
mm-hmm.
interesting to me to have anything like that. So,
No.
and it's uncomfortable because I'm like, well, I want to buy a brand new dress for this wedding. I went to Crossroads. I bought a cheap dress. It's cute. Now I have to get it. It's just like a whole thing. And I'm like, my friend was literally asking me what is more important because I'm like, oh, I would rather just go get a new dress. Like,
Mm,
now I'm stressed out. It doesn't fit right. And now I waited till the last minute, even though I bought this months ago to get it. And they're like, well, is it really that important to look so good for this wedding? They only really care that you're there. And now you're going to pressure yourself financially for this
mm.
one day. And that doesn't, what's more important to you? Is it more important to feel luxurious in the moment when no one really gives a fuck because the wedding's not about you?
Mm,
Or
mhm.
is it more important to save your money? Like, you have to ask yourself
That's
that
where it comes
question.
down. That's where it comes down to values.
Yeah.
What's important to you. And there's that phrase, keeping up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
that was commandeered by keeping up with the Kardashians. So if you see that, like, Courtney and I don't know what,
Chloe.
Kim, Chloe, yeah, if, oh, I've got to have that because they have that, and now I'm putting that on a credit card, and now
Mhm.
I owe money, and it actually ends up costing me more than what it I ended up paying for it
And
because
now
of
it's
the
costing me
interest.
emotionally too. Emotional
Yes.
burden
Well,
of the debt.
and so when you think of the emotional burden and think about the other alignment with Mercury in Taurus aligning with Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn in Pisces is urging us to take a hard look at our unconscious,
Being responsible.
being responsible. Oh, I feel so guilty. I shouldn't have bought that car. If I didn't buy that car, then I would have so much. Give yourself a break.
Mm.
Like, try not to be so hard on yourself about it. You're in
Mm.
the situation that you're in because you're meant to be in this
Mm.
situation. And it's not the end of the world that you have this car and it's a bigger payment than what you want, but you've learned from it that you're not going to
Yeah.
do that again, and that's the benefit. So really
Yeah.
connecting your conscious mind to your unconscious mind, showing yourself compassion for the financial choices you've made in your life.
I mean, just staying on that same exact subject, when I bought the car, I was like, I only want to pay this much of a payment. And they're like, okay, we can do that. And I had never bought a new car. I bought a used car and I knew the payment before I bought it. I didn't get any warranty. My
Mhm.
insurance was cheap because my car was cheaper. So when I bought this car, I bought it and they were like, oh, do you want to get a warranty? Like, you got the exact price you wanted. And I was like, no. Are they trying to scam me? And they're like, oh, you need it. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I called my
Mhm.
ex's dad because he worked in banking for 45 years.
Mhm.
And I was like, are they trying to scam me at the dealership? And he was like, dude, you have to buy that warranty. You bought an expensive new car. Like, you're going to pay so much more. All these things are included. You actually need to get the warranty. That's the smartest thing to do. And I was like, God damn it. Now I'm paying $150 or $200 more a month because of the warranty. And it's because I didn't know. Like, how would I have known that beforehand? I would have never asked that question until I was already kind of in too deep. And then it made my insurance go up significantly. So it's just a first time buy in this sense where I'm like,
So wait,
oh, I didn't realize it would be so much more than I anticipated. Now it's essentially like $300 more than I expected to pay because of the insurance on the nicer car
uh-huh.
and the newer car, and then also for the warranty, which now is, yeah.
Are you glad you got the warranty?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I did use it. Like, it was included, like, oh, at this many miles, you get a service, you get, free oil changes and whatever update stuff for like the first couple of years, which now I think I've had it for 3 years. So I think all of that warranty stuff is like kind of faded out. All of the benefits. I just didn't realize, just a big learning experience of asking all these questions in advance and being more educated when it comes to a bigger purchase. I just didn't, I hadn't had any issues from my last one. I had bought a car and I was like, okay, I know how to buy a car.
Well, my hope is that with Jupiter in Taurus, Jupiter is the planet of buoyancy and abundance, and I hope that it brings some levity or lightness to everyone's finances, so that
I love
everyone
that. We
feels
need it.
better about their money situation.
Yes, yes, yes,
Moving
yes.
on to Wednesday, May 17th, we're just adding one planet here, the moon, the planet of emotions in Taurus. As it moves into Taurus, it forms that conjunction with Jupiter in Taurus. It forms the square to Pluto as well. It also, I didn't want to make it more complicated, but it will move to 6 degrees and form that conjunction with Mercury in Taurus and the sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So the moon brings out emotional sensitivity. So maybe everything that we were talking about on Tuesday, you're feeling even more on Wednesday when the moon shows up there. And just focus on your material well-being and your self-worth. What do you value? What is important to you? Some people want this type of car, some people want that kind of car. Nobody's wrong unless
Yeah.
you're choosing something that you don't want because
Yeah.
somebody
I
else
mean,
is telling you to get that.
I even like asked my ex, I'm like, should we just sell this car and then we'll like get two like cheaper cars? And he was like, this car is important for your happiness. Like you're very sensitive. It is like a more like it's like a luxury sport car. It's an Audi. It's
Mhm.
very quiet inside when you drive. It's very smooth and like having something that feels quiet to me. I'm just very sensitive to noise and I drive a
Mm.
lot to like work and my family lives an hour away and I think that like and just living in LA, just dealing with traffic in general, it's very soothing to my nervous system for my overall well-being to have something that is actually comfortable and quiet to be in for long periods of time. It really feels like it soothes me. So I guess recognizing that he even recognizes it in me. He's like, dude, like you need to have that. That's important for your like well-being is to have sometimes you have to spend money on nice things and it's okay.
Okay, then that's it. That's your answer. Because that's what you value. You value being in a car where you feel somewhat insulated and safe from the chaos that it surrounds you in, the Los Angeles traffic scene.
Yeah.
So, moving on to Thursday, May 18th, we're adding in the sun, the planet of light, life, and vitality
Damn, we're
in
like
Taurus.
doubling down on all of this
Yes.
stuff. We're just building.
Exactly, aligning with Neptune over here at 27 degrees in Pisces. So, yeah, we're like doubling down with the energy where we've got uh, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and then the Sun and Mercury in Taurus, and Jupiter in Taurus, and Jupiter connect. So it's like 3 planets in Taurus we're talking about here: the planet of expansion, the planet of communication, and the planet of vitality. And wow, this is just highlighting everything that we're talking about here. What do I value? What are my fantasies for money when it comes to money? Like, are you somebody that can really manifest specifically what it is you want? Where the more that you think about the way that the food tastes or the way that the car feels like when you're sitting in it and the way that it drives, does that put you in this place? Like, this could be a powerful time to manifest what you want in terms of your material well-being.
And also, just even in having the conversation with you to like kind of work these things out and reflect on it, it's like, I don't know if maybe it brings more appreciation for these things, whether it's in your, in your dreams of projecting for the future or in the current moment of just being like, yeah, what is important to me? Sometimes I forget those comforts, like just buying something new for my home. Every time that happens, where I'm like, oh, I need to invest in my material world, it is very fulfilling emotionally. So recognizing that that car is more than just an expense, it's a trade-off. It's a financial trade-off for a comfort that's important to me. Yeah, I think that just
And you're willing to pay
appreciating.
for it. You're willing to work for it. Yes. Okay, so the energy continues to intensify as we move to Friday, May 19th, where we have all the planets that we've been talking about: Jupiter squaring Pluto, Saturn sextile Mercury. We're also adding in Mars, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict, in the fixed fire sign symbolized by the lion Leo. So Mars moves into Leo and forms a square with in Jupiter in Taurus, while also forming an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. Meanwhile, we've got the moon and the sun conjunct in Taurus at 28 degrees here, forming the new moon in Taurus. So Ingrid's got her hand on her forehead. Her brain is melting.
There's so many alignments. I'm like, how do we even sum this up? I'm like, wait.
So let's do it one at a time, just one at a time. Like, let's make it as simple as possible. Like, first things first, let's talk about Mars in Leo. Mars in Leo, which is the last time Mars was in Leo was June 11th to July 29th, 2021. This time it's here from May 20th until July 10th of this year. So for those of you that have key astrological points or planets in Scorpio or Taurus, there's going to be some conflicts during this period. So just buckle down, run towards your fears, face the conflicts, and do it from your heart center, because Mars is the planet of action and Leo is the sign that rules the heart. So everybody is being called to action to follow their heart.
So, I mean, this may sound silly because it's just like social media, but for some reason I like to consume it and I don't really put anything out. But we're trying to put stuff on Instagram through so people can have more ways to connect with us and use the astrology that lives in the podcast in like a more like a daily form. And then, a weekly form where we're doing the little intro where we read it so people can have an idea of what to listen to on the podcast. And so I'm like, that's more of like my face out there. Somehow I don't relate. Like, Instagram feels different to me than like just the podcast. I feel like no one I know is listening. I mean, now I connect with these people through Instagram, but most of the people I know aren't really listening to the astrology. But then on Instagram, it's like a lot of those people I personally know. So then they're like seeing more of me and what I'm doing. So that feels kind of scary. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to post more astrology stuff, I don't feel like my life is all astrology. And I'd like to showcase more of what I do. I want to incorporate food or nails or art, which put a little bit of pressure on me and a little bit of fear of putting myself out in the community, doing something in a different way, where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have once a week post for astrology, I also want to have a once a week post for some sort of art, some sort of food, maybe some fashion. And that's all a bit uncomfortable, but also exciting. And like using that action energy and Leo energy, like that's something I like to do. I like to share these parts of myself. So I don't know what the deal is, but it's giving me a bit of accountability. I see Saturn over here in Pisces. Maybe it's like taking responsibility for my unconscious attachment to maybe staying small.
Yes, Leo's about creativity and being the center of attention and having fun and seeking the spotlight. So, this Mars is driving you to be more creative and follow your fun and your joy and the things that make your heart feel open. Now, when we're talking about the new moon in Taurus, and if you're curious about understanding how these lunar cycles affect you, I mean, this class is already filled up now, but for the next cycle, I teach moon cycle classes where we look at where the new moon and full moon are happening and where they're happening in relation to your astrological code and how to work with that energy. So when I think of the new moon, I think of myself as a farmer. And a farmer wants to know needs to know three things: needs to understand the seed, the soil, and the climate. So when you're in the moon cycle class, you learn the soil and the climate, which is what house is this new moon occurring in for you. And the climate is what planets within your astrological code are aligning with the new moon. But the seed is, where is the new moon? What sign is the new moon in? The new moon is planting the seed of the coming harvest. The full moon is showing and sharing the harvest. So understanding Taurus, fixed earth, ruled by Venus, symbolized by the bull. Taurus is, when you think of Taurus, self-worth, values, security, sensuality. In order to have any values, you have to understand your self-worth. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what feels good to me. This is what tastes good to me. This is what looks good, sounds good to me. And then once you have those values, then it's about securing those values. Like if you have your car that you value, Ingrid, you don't leave it parked with the windows down and the doors unlocked. You lock it up and keep it in a safe place to some degree, or maybe you do, leave the doors
I try
open.
to keep it clean, and like
keep it clean.
In the past I've like not been very good at keeping my car clean. That's for sure. I've never been. I feel like my car has been kind of like a chaotic place of clothes and like trash, and just once I got this car, I felt like I really wanted to care for it way more than I've ever cared for a vehicle in the past, because it was important to me to take care of this thing. So I thought it was valuable, something that I really value.
Yes, exactly. So it totally changed your perspective on how to treat your car.
Yeah.
And this is where sensuality comes in, because once you have secured what it is you value, now you can truly enjoy sitting in the car, feeling the comfort of the seats, maybe the heated seats on a cold night.
That's my favorite part about my car, Scott. Have I told you that before?
I don't know, maybe.
But even like on a summer night when it's cool, like it gets cool in LA at night, even in the summertime sometimes. And like, especially after work, I get off at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 in the morning. I'm fucking cold. I always feel so grateful to have that. Like that, it just really fills me with joy to be able to experience a heated seat. Like it feels very luxurious, and I appreciate it every single time. Like I didn't grow up with nice vehicles, and that's definitely something that I appreciate. That, and also like it has a nice speakers and stuff. It came with like an upgraded sound system, which like my old car also had nice speakers when I got it, and that was one of the things I really valued. I feel like I've become a bit of like a audio snob. I'm like, if it doesn't sound like, I can watch something that looks shitty, but if it doesn't sound good, like no, that's not gonna work for me.
Yes.
So
yes.
both of those things feel like I appreciate them a lot.
So during this new moon, which is occurring at 8:54 a.m. Pacific time, this is your opportunity to set your intentions to establish your self-worth, what you value, to secure what it is you value, and to enjoy the 5 physical senses.
I love Taurus stuff. It just really, every time you remind me to tap into this and that there's a reason it's important to me, I'm like, oh my God, you're fucking right. Like I appreciate the house that I live in. I pay a lot of money to live here, but I love my house. I think it's really beautiful. It's really comfortable. It's really quiet. And I could live somewhere in a neighborhood that's not as quiet. There is a trade-off for that. There's a big trade-off for my mental health and my well-being. I mean, you lived, Gabriella, your lady, she's very sensitive as well. And that was like one of the things that was making her not like her living situation anymore. In your past house, it was too loud. And she was just like, I can't take it. I could hear a freeway. I could hear a person. Like, no.
Yeah, now it's just the planes that are flying overhead. So that's the new yeah. It's I don't want to go down this road. Let's move on to Saturday, because I've got something to admit here. In the chaos of putting this together, I've realized that we made a mistake. I should have caught this earlier, but like if we go back to Friday, like this Leo should not be here on Friday. It should only be here on Saturday. Okay. So, oh well, our listeners understand.
And
But
also, I mean, you still feel the energy, like you'll be feeling it before and after the day. So
absolutely. And so, it's important to really lean into this Leo energy, and especially those that have prominent fire or air placements. Like, this is the time to really thrive, to really, this is your time. This is your time. If you're an air or fire sign, from May 20th to July 10th, this is the kick ass and take names period of the year for you. This happens every 2 years. It takes Mars 2 years to transit through the zodiac. So this is a real opportunity. I don't want to just be, doom and gloom for the Tauruses and Scorpios like me, but I have planets in air and fire as well. So, it's all the balance, and this is why understanding your astrological code is so important, so that when this Mars piece is going to be squaring someplace in your chart, or sextiling or trine, which is the gift.
yeah, I mean, I was just thinking like the more we get into these nuances where we're like, oh, well, now we know we have a primal triad. It's like, okay, well, part of it is in a sign that might be more uncomfortable. And then another part of your alignment might be more positive. So, how does that affect you positively and negatively at the same time? Like, how do you work with the energy? Sometimes it's just recognizing that sometimes it will be uncomfortable, but there is a gift in pushing through the discomfort and gaining the reward at the end of actually just moving through the energy and being aware of like the lesson or the payoff, that the reward that you'll get by actually moving through it intentionally.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you haven't had a reading, like number one, the moon classes, that's like the cheapest way to get some personal one-on-one time with Scott. They happen twice kind of a month or every moon cycle. You set intentions with him, and then there's a check-in on how they've kind of manifested in your life. And he does those according to your chart. So those are really fun, like intro to just get to know Scott more and see how to work with the energy more. And then, or you can get a reading. And once you get a reading, these little nuanced things will make more sense to you. Or if you like what's happening on here, basically he has a deeper level of the cosmic pathway where you actually meet with him every single week, more like you would like a therapist or a coach or something, which is kind of what Scott does for me here. So if you have seen some growth in me, which I think, you just help me check in and tap into all of these things we talk about on a weekly basis. And this check-in right here does so much for me. I learned so much about myself, and I think my relationships, my finances, my career, my goals are all positively impacted by what we talk about on here. And you reminding me of all the things that I want to work on. So if you guys out there listening see what's happening with me and Scott here and you want some of that, that's what the cosmic pathway is. And he only has like a limited amount of spots, and I think a few spots have opened up recently. So if you've been thinking about it, you should write Scott. It's a deeper process. So you actually have to get a reading first and connect with him and see if it's a good match for you both, because he's selective about who he meets with on a weekly basis. He wants to make sure it's worth it for both of you to connect and that you're really well aligned for the program.
Thank
so
you,
I think
Ingrid.
that's like your most special offering, really.
Yes, absolutely. That's my greatest joy, is working with somebody on a weekly basis and just seeing the growth over
you like to go
time.
deep.
Yeah, go deep. Yes, absolutely.
It's very hard for Scott to do a surface thing, even in just the alignments or the questions. It's like, I'm like, okay, maybe we can talk about it for 3 minutes. And Scott's like, I can talk about it for 45 minutes. Like, he can just go, that's like his favorite thing. So I do think that's where you really thrive, is, the one-on-one time. And the more I get to know you, the more beneficial this relationship is, which is just crazy. It's like constantly evolving and growing, and you knowing me in a deeper way and being able to reflect the planet's energy in ways that will benefit me.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Yeah.
I'm very great. You help keep me in check so that I don't just ramble on for 45 minutes about every alignment. So thank you for that. So concluding here with Sunday, May 21st, we're looking at Mars in Leo, again opposing Pluto in Aquarius, but we're adding the Sun in Gemini the sun moves into Gemini and forms that sextile with Mars and the trine to Pluto. So this is a very powerful air-fire mix between the two air signs, the fixed and the mutable, and the fixed fire sign. So,
This
the
feels
sun,
very.
yeah.
Oh,
What
it
were
feels
you
like
gonna say?
oh, this seems like it would be like a uplifting energy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Gemini is the lightest sign. It's the curious sign. It's just wanting to get the bite-size info, the cliff notes, the bullet points, and they keep things moving. They keep the conversation flowing. They get you from one they help people like me, Ingrid being a Gemini rising, helping people like me not ramble on about the same topic for 45 minutes. Okay, I've had enough of that. Now let's move on to something else. So, but Gemini, the sun is in Gemini every year from May 20th, May 21st until June 20th, June 21st, depending on where you are in the world and what time it is. But this year, the sun is in Gemini from May 21st to June 21st. And this is a helpful alignment for all the air and fire signs. For those that are Virgo and Pisces, the sun in Gemini brings some challenges. Make sure to really take your time and slow down and chill out, especially if you have the sun or the moon in Virgo and Pisces. This can be a little
Yep.
disruptive, this Gemini energy, but it's a time to really connect with other people and connect people together. So if you know this person and you know that person and they don't know each other and you think they'd make a good match for whatever reason, connect them and start the conversation by asking questions. Listening. Gemini is all about listening. Great listeners. It's ruled by Mercury. So this is an opportunity to improve your listening and to elevate your knowledge by learning a little bit about a lot.
I'm also wondering, I mean, you just touched on this, but it's like being courageous and taking
Mm-hmm.
action in the community in a way
Mm-hmm.
that is different
Mm-hmm.
than you would normally do it by
Mm.
asking the questions and being curious.
Yes.
Don't be afraid, like you said, or like don't be afraid to ask the questions. And it's
Yes.
scary to do things in a new way, especially in the community.
Yes.
Like it's to be seen and just act different or ask different questions. It's like, oh no, am I going to be annoying or weird, or like are they going to hate me? It's like, no, it's you're connecting with people and that's good. You're being curious, and that's genuine curiosity, I think, is a means to closer relationships.
This alignment with the sun and Pluto and Mars, I mean, it's drawing you into the community. Like Pluto is a very magnetic planet. So I imagine that people are going to feel very social during this time. Uh, Follow your heart towards the questions that you want to ask. Like when you're thinking about a question, how does the question make your heart feel? Does it
Mm.
feel excited? Does it feel afraid? Maybe if there's fear there, there's something to look at within yourself and maybe